We're going to look at the generations in terms of power couples. As you can see, we define a power couple as two people, or supernatural beings or gods, who are impressively separate, but together they're a true force to be reckoned with, and that takes a special kind of magic. Our power couple from each generation definitely fits that definition. All right, power couple number one is Gaia and Uranus. While we do not know their true origins other than what Hesiod says, we do know that their offsprings were impressive. Their children encompass the Titans, the Cyclopes, and the Hecatones. All of these beings played important roles in the early days of Greek myth. I don't want to forget to mention that Pontus, who represents the watery nature of or primordial element, Pontus was another of Gaia's sons, with whom she had relations with and children. Gaia and Pontus are by no means a power couple, but it is important to mention them for all the children they had. I'll just name their three offsprings. We got Nereus, who becomes the father of Thetis, Ceto, from whom are descended Medusa, Pegasus, Cerberus, Hydra, Chimera, and Sphinx. And finally, there's Thaumas, who is the father of the Harpies. Power couple number two are members of the Titans. We have Rhea and Cronus. Before I go into them, the first Titan to be born from Gaia was born asexually, and it was Uranus, or the sky. Then she and Uranus had 12 children together, 6 male and 6 female. The last born Titus was Cronus, and he ended up challenging his father. Really, wasn't he just taking up for his mother Gaia? Be sure to read about how he challenged Uranus and ultimately defeated his father. Now back to Rhea and Cronus. They are important because their union brings about the Olympians, the 6 male and the 6 female. Note that Titans are rarely represented in art during ancient Greek times. They seldom appear in later stories or in religious cults. As a result, we only cover them in this early chapter. All right, power couple number 3 is Hera and Zeus, and I am sure each of you have heard of them. Like Rhea and Cronus, they too are brother and sister, and then husband and wife. From their union, the Olympians came about, and just as Cronus challenged Uranus, Zeus challenged Cronus. Each dad seemed to have issues with his offspring. Zeus's birth story isn't exactly straightforward, so be sure you remember how his birth came about, based on the advice of Rhea's parents, Gaia and Uranus. Let's go back to the Titans. I mentioned that they were not often represented in art. It's really their unions and the children that come from that matter to the ancient Greeks. There were the 12 Titans, which included Rhea, Cronus, and Oceanus. You can see on the slide the others that were also Titans. We should note Homer's version of the origin of the world is incomplete and different from Hesiod's view. There are quick mentions attributed to Homer, like on page 76, when it mentions that Oceanus and Thetis were the ones who gave birth to all the gods instead of Gaia and Uranus, as Hesiod says. Scholars believe that Homer might have been referencing an earlier Greek creation myth of Eurynomes. Unlike Hesiod, Homer did not tell a straight tale about the origin of the world, and some of his stories varied greatly from Hesiod's. For instance, you learned in your book that Aphrodite was born from sea foam as a result of Uranus's castration. Homer says that Aphrodite is the daughter of Zeus and Dion. These are two distinctly different tales. I've mentioned the Titans. Now a bit more about the Cyclopes. There were 3 of them, and their names simply mean round eyes. Their roles are small, but you want to be aware of their existence. Know that they were clever smiths of the gods. Now we have the Hecatones. Say that 3 times fast, and you know I mangled it here. There were 3 of them as well. Each had 100 arms that shot out from his shoulders. They each had 50 heads, and they were so powerful they could crush anyone with their hands. We've mentioned how divine myths are also etological, meaning that they explained how something came to existence. We're even given one early example when it comes to the story of how Libya and Ethiopians came to be. The story deals with Hyperion and Phalathon. It is a cautionary tale about not being too curious about your origins, and don't get too big for your britches. Now for Uranus and his children issues. You would think gods would have simple lives and that it's the humans that have issues. Not true. Each of these gods had issues aplenty. For whatever reason, Uranus hated his offspring. He cleverly stopped them from being born by covering up Gaia and not letting any of his children be born. Gaia was certainly unhappy at the situation, as your book reveals. Gaia asked for support, for she had a plan, and Cronus, who was still in her womb, said that he would help carry out the plan. She gave Cronus a sickle and a saw, and Cronus ambushed his father and cut off his father's genitals. Greek myths are brutal and violent sometimes. More than that happens, so be sure to read. I just give the highlights during the lecture. The assault broke Uranus away from Gaia and allowed the Titans to finally be born. Look at the other beings that spring up as a result of spilling Uranus's blood on Earth. It is interesting to note that for Uranus's spilt blood, Aphrodite sprung up according to Hesiod. That's just one version of Aphrodite's myth. Remember, the book has the full accounting of her birth according to Hesiod. We all know the word monster, but did you know the ancient Greek definition is that at which you point in surprise? And it's fitting. Note how the Uranes or Furies came to be as well as the giants. Again, it deals with spilt blood going into the earth. I won't say here much about the monsters or creatures that come as a result of all the tumultuous unions, but you can see them in your book, and a few of them will pop up in myths this semester.